we have another exciting panel, this time on emerging technologies and practices in project management. And we have wonderful speakers, four wonderful speakers, very knowledgeable ones, and of course, a very knowledgeable moderator, whom I'd like to welcome to the stage now, starting with Jeff Crowl. Welcome, Jeff. Well, Jeff is an experienced Agile coach with CSPSM and Agile Certified Practitioner credentials. He specializes in guiding teams and organizations. He has driven significant results at companies like Nike and T-Mobile, improving team productivity and project timeline accuracy. So welcome, Jeff. So next, I'd like to welcome Greg to the stage. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
So Greg Lindley is a principal product and program manager with a long track record of successfully implementing enterprise-wide applications. He has deep expertise at large corporations like Amazon and holds a PMP, Certified Scrum Professional, and Six Sigma Green Belt certifications. So welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Dan Baldwin. Dan is a business project manager with 25 years of experience across aerospace and defense, IT and governance, risk and compliance, and is one of just under 70 people globally to hold active PMP, PMI PBA, and CISA certifications. He is currently focusing on AI development and governance. So welcome, Dan. And next, I'd like to welcome Ravi Prasad. Woo. Welcome, Ravi. Ravi has over 20 years of technical project and program management experience, leading large-scale global software development programs. He is currently a senior technical project manager at GitHub Expert Services, leading security innovation projects. So welcome, Ravi. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome our moderator, Sreeraj Menon.
Come on.
Welcome, Sreeraj. Sreeraj is a principal TPM at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, working on software risk management initiatives. Having steered technology programs for 15 years at companies like Amazon, T-Mobile, he is now looking to learn and grow beyond his work by getting involved in the PMI community's Toastmasters Club and now volunteering at our Professional Development Day event. Welcome, Sreeraj. And with that, I'll hand the session over to you.
Thank you, Phoi. Really appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. This is a great afternoon for the PMI community to join and enjoy this next session with this brilliant bunch of people here. My name is Sreeraj, and I have the privilege of moderating this session. It's for emerging technologies and practices. So as your moderator, it's my job, it's very simple, to make sure that you all walk away getting sparked with all the inspiration and learning that you're going to get about emerging technologies. So starting tomorrow, you can use them in your day-to-day lives. So here's how we're going to spend the next 60 minutes. First 45 minutes, we'll have questions, and I'm going to split them into 4 themes so we can follow along. The first would be about what kind of emerging technologies each of our panelists would like to share. Then we would move on to how these technologies are going to help us scale up, because the whole point of technology is to make enterprises achieve large-scale projects globally. Then, guess what? We're going to go into something you've probably never heard of. It's called AI. So that will be the next topic. And then at the end, we'll end with some personal, light and memorable questions that we can walk away with. So should be fun. Oh yes, there's QR codes. Make sure to scan them and ask the questions. Like you did last time, at the last 15 minutes, around 5:05, we would have that. And we have our wonderful timers who's going to keep us on track with their powerful paddles that they have there. Let's jump right in and kick it off with, I'd like to hear from you, Ravi Prasad, on the emerging technologies. You've been at the forefront of large-scale software development teams and programs, like 2 decades or so. What emerging technologies do you think are reshaping how engineering teams are working today?
Okay. So this question is much more that how engineering teams are evolving with emerging technology. So before even I jump answering or taking my stance on this question, most of the time I have heard people saying, oh, software engineering or development teams are mistake. It's very difficult to know how they work because they work very fast, they work on fancy technologies. Can you decipher that piece? And then my answer is that they are not alien. They are just a bunch of people knowing programming language, understand how they can write applications. And they actually borrow concepts from the modern or even ancient working methodologies. For example, the lean principle started from Japanese car makers, Toyota. Then agile technologies also evolved from US Army, and then that's how they started working, and then software industry has taken those concepts and do work on developing applications. So coming back to the question, the best thing which these engineering teams, they do is to adapt. And they are constantly evolving themselves. And then when you think about AI, they are also evolving there. So the more open you are in order to understand how you can reshape and then reshape things for humans, you'll do better. So again, the question is that how they are evolving, how these teams are doing better is being adaptive, being understanding new technology and learning from that quickly, and then started applying to their day-to-day practice. And that's how they are working and developing applications. What was the other part to this question? Or was
Mostly for large-scale software companies, you're talking about adapting and understanding how you're going to reshape engineering teams with the emerging technologies. So do you have anything additional to add for like large-scale corporations? Because you've got a lot of experience there.
Yeah, okay, so for large-scale organizations, we may think that, okay, they are working there's a massive team, and it's very difficult to work over there. Actually, most of these large corporations work on pizza-sized teams. So what they do, they design team size where a team can eat one pizza, which means that the team size is not more than 4 or 5 people working either on a feature or set of features and then evolving from there. They modularize things in order to find better value. With AI, even they are rapidly growing in that format, and AI agents are part of their pizza-sized team.
Thank you. Really appreciate that answer. Moving on to Dan, a little different because your experience is more into aerospace, IT, defense, compliance. So how do you see these emerging technologies impacting risk and governance models, especially in the last 5 years?
Okay, so this is one of my pet hobby horses, is trade compliance. So we're going to see trade compliance become a new and emerging market, a new emerging feature. And when I say trade compliance, what I mean is data that is determined to be safe and for public use, and then data that is determined to be sensitive by the governments that the data is generated in. Trying to think of the best way to describe it. Okay, so I'm going to use the United States government, EAR, and then ITAR. And so the materials that build this stage that you see us on, this is all public knowledge. Anybody can build this materials. But let's say that these panels that we're sitting on are made out of a specific grade of titanium. That immediately moves it into EAR territory where that specific grade of titanium isn't common knowledge, and we don't want that common knowledge going outside the United States. And then let's say that it's weapons grade titanium, which exists, and then it becomes ITAR, and at that point there's armed guards outside those doors, making sure that none of you are walking in here with a spectrometer and tweezers to try and shave off a piece of the titanium to figure out exactly what composition it is. That knowledge, that data, that is now going to get regulated. And that is going to be, in my prediction, and where I see this going in the emerging markets, it's more than hardware, more than anything else, is that data, the classifications. That's what's going to be at the forefront of any new trade agreements. Now, where I'm going with this is back in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, we had a series of ongoing trade agreements called the World Trade Organization. And we had WTO rounds, and every time we did a WTO round, more and more free trade was agreed, and more countries got in. And then all that got nuked when, in the early 2000s, when the Doha round failed to materialize and everybody broke out of Doha. And now here we are, the whole world's involved in a trade war, and it's not just the United States against everybody, it's everybody against everybody. But sooner or later, we're going to get out of that, but it's not going to be goods anymore. It's going to be data. Data is going to be the new trade thing that we're going to exercise treaties about, and we're going to say, this country can have access to this kind of EAR data, these countries can have access to this kind of ITAR data, and that, more than physical technology, is what we need to be looking at. And then along with that is going to be AI implementations. We're going to see AI implementations probably marked as EAR or ITAR, and certain AI platforms are not going to be allowed outside of geographic boundaries unless by treaty. And that's going to open up a whole new bucket of worms. So trade compliance. Start looking into it, get used to it, because probably in the next 3 to 5 years, you as project managers, you guys are going to start having to be concerned about that.
Thank you, Dan. Over to you, Greg. You've led product implementations that impact millions of customers. When it comes to emerging tech, how do you decide what's worth investing it in and what's just noise?
Sure. When you're developing like an investment portfolio, like if you're in finance, there is a term called shadow indexing, which they use to manage risk. So like one of the least aggressive and risky things you can do is just follow the stock market, because the stock market's going to go on. It doesn't take, like, you're basically betting on the US economy. And you want to deviate from that, you have to manage your risk and decide how much you're going to deviate from. So a typical like shadow indexing, even if somebody says, I'm going to have this portfolio that's going to do something weird. Oh yeah, I'm going to invest in just Meta and these other tech companies. What they're really doing is, if you actually look into the weeds, what they're probably doing is about 70% of the investment, and this could be like time or money or whatever, is going to be 70% is like, it's going to do what I expect it to do. Like, it's going to keep up with what people need it to do. 20% is, okay, I'm ready to deviate a little bit. I'm going to take on a little bit of risk. And then maybe 5 to 10% is like, shoot the moon. Like, this is a small company, or this is like a small investment, but if it turns out, it's going to be amazing. And so you figure out, like, when you think about adopting a new technology, you think about where this is going to ride in your risk portfolio. If you're like, I'm going to put most of my resources into this, the outcome should be pretty assured. You shouldn't have to deviate too much, and you need to do better than going to Vegas and like betting it all on black, you know. But if you're trying an emerging technology, it's okay to do that, but then you present it that way. You brace it and say, I'm going to spend 5 to 10% of my bandwidth, whatever that is, right? Time, money, depends on the company. And just say, hey, this might not turn out well, but either A, our competitors are doing it, so we should look into it, or if it does turn out well and we save a bunch, then we'll be glad that we did that investment. So you just have to container it. The people who get in trouble think that there's one thing that's going to solve a big problem, or they have this lopsided approach to investment. So I tell people, like, always manage the portfolio. 70% it's going to do what I expect it to do, low risk. 20%, I'm going to take on a little risk. And then you take that 5%, like that's your mad money. That's when you go and let's try some new tech. Don't know if it's going to work, but then present it that way. Just say, I don't know if this is going to work out or not. I'll let you know in 6 months. And then, but just own up to that, I would just say. Yeah.
Wonderful, yeah. I like the part of owning up to with the facts. The 70-30 split helps. Moving on to Jeff Crowl. You've been a Scrum Master since 2015. How have you seen Agile evolve in that decade that you've been around? More for like larger, like the traditional like predictive environments. What kind of evolution have you seen in Agile?
Totally. I got in as things were cresting. There was a time before my official Scrum time when Scrum was the new hotness. Every company wanted to do Scrum, banks, credit unions, telecom, software, heavens. And organizations that maybe weren't ready to step out on that limb or weren't ready to decentralize the decision making, weren't ready to build that culture of agility and learning continuously, stepped into a space and made some compromises we will discuss later at a future point in this very panel. Spoiler. We've tried to find ways to make it scale, because the ideal of Scrum, where it's individual teams who are autonomous, can build all the code themselves, that doesn't work if we need to build something the size of Windows. And there have been different attempts to scale Agile. There is no pure Scrum out there, no pure Agile. It's all some flavor of hybrid on some level or other. And we're finding ways that we can make those models work at a larger scale while preserving that sense of deep learning, continuous learning, break stuff once, and then try not to break it again. And I think we as an Agile community are built around change, growth, and learning. Yeah, we aren't going anywhere.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm secretly hoping to sound like I understand everything they're saying, when actually I'm learning from them a lot. Over to the next topic, which is to do with scaling. So how do we take this technology and scale our companies or organizations? So I'll start with you, Greg. You have worked in large-scale organizations. You're at Nordstrom right now, is that correct? Yeah. And so without getting bogged down on process and risk aversion, right? Mm-hmm. How do you keep going, the innovation going?
I think innovation is always going to have a role for companies that want to keep with others. You keep it going by making sure a couple of things. Making sure, one, that's always a part of your portfolio, right? Like you should always reserve some amount of bandwidth for discovering something new. The way you get support for innovation or justify innovation is you always are able to benchmark yourself against the market and say, this is what our competitors are doing as far as we know. We need to at least keep up with them. But then usually companies, when they see what their competitors are doing, they always want to, we could do better. They could do it in 4 months. We could do it in 3. And so you can use that to your advantage by like pushing a particular, it's bad to say like an agenda, but it's like you're trying to get the world that you work in to realize that like walking through the world is you're going like up a down escalator, right? If you do nothing, you're actually losing ground. You just don't know it. And so you always have to be moving forward, even just to stay present, because everyone else around you is moving. It just may not be obvious. And yeah, so again, just always reserve a little bit amount of time, whatever that is, on a project or in a program or like in your budget for research, and then just always make sure that you're trying to benchmark against whatever the competition is and trying to be that just like one better. So.
That is interesting to hear, because as a product manager and as Jeff, like you are a Scrum Master, I'm sure you probably have crossroads when there are innovations coming in and the teams are getting pushed and you're getting the pressure from the product managers to push the boundaries, right? So from an Agile principles perspective, do you see there are more and more like areas that are misunderstood or misspelled in enterprise settings?
No, I think enterprise settings always get it right. Now, the word agile in the Agile Manifesto was an adjective. It wasn't saying, this is this noun, this idea we have of agility, of agile, that is a principle, as a methodology. The idea was, hey, here's some things we have found are working together as an agile manifesto to describe our manifesto. But then a bunch of companies thought, ooh, let's try doing that too, and we had to find ways to spread the love of agile. There's a joke. Raise your hand here if you've heard the word scrummerfall or wagile. Yeah. And it's a joke in the Agile community. For those of you who don't know, that's this, oh, this isn't really Scrum, this is Scrummerfall. We are really doing waterfall that's borrowing some pieces of Scrum. This isn't really Scrum. And it misses the point. It sounds like this purity culture within the Agile community when we need to rephrase that. From this point forward, if anybody here ever hears the term Scrummerfall or Wagile, tell them you're mispronouncing that word. That word is pronounced sloppy waterfall. Because when you take these principles, when you take your waterfall and just bolt on some pieces of Scrum you found at a dumpster somewhere, you're not moving in an Agile format, you're not really doing waterfall, you're doing waterfall poorly at that point. And in order to actually do Agile, you need to rebuild this thing out of some actual parts you ordered from the store and build from there. I think the Agile space needs to get away from this sense of purity of what is and is not Agile, and we need to find ways to intelligently ask, cool, is this thing working for us right now? If it is, awesome, let's keep doing it. If not, cool. How do we make this thing work continuously? That's real agility. That's real continuous learning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Moving right along from sloppy waterfall and dumpster to Dan, you worked in 20 countries across several regions. Explain to us how these global perspectives have shaped the approach you take to modern technologies.
Well, assuming Kate doesn't turn on the orbital mind control lasers and turn us all into clones of herself, I've thought a lot about this one, because this is a complex answer and I have to keep it in under 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Good Lord.
You don't want those paddles coming flying here.
I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought about my 20 years and whatnot. And when I started out, it was the end of the 90s, beginning the aughts, and it was the very end of the bad old days of project management, American-dominated project management, where basically Americans bestrode the world and called themselves project managers due to the fact that they were able to swim instead of sink when they were thrown into it. But the rest of the world caught up, and about 10 years ago, we started seeing graduates out of project management programs in Europe, in China, and India start coming into the United States, and y'all had 4 years of solid pedagogical background and degrees with solid pedagogy in project management, supply chain management, and you came in and you knew more than we did. And slowly but surely, you've come in and taken over the project management as an exercise worldwide and made it into more of a scholastic discipline. And America is still about 20 years behind. We're getting there with Northeastern University here in Seattle, for instance. We're getting there, but we're about 20 years behind. And the other big thing is that it's increasingly woman-dominated, like more women than anything else. I'm seeing more women coming up through the ranks of project management, not just in the United States, but in India and China and Europe. And even with the authoritarian and protectionist bent that the world seems to be going to, that trend is still increasing. And that's the big thing that I'm seeing right now, is academic rigor, emphasis on academic achievement, and more women taking advantage of that and moving into this field. And I think it's going to ultimately be an egalitarian thing. And yeah, artificial intelligence will play into it, but this is still a human-centric profession, a human-centric approach. And that's what I'm seeing is over the last 20 years, it's become more woman-dominated and more academic. And I welcome it because I don't want to go back to the bad old days of, hey, here's a project, make it or you're fired. Oh, and we don't care if you don't know anything about project management, learn as you're doing it. Like, I don't ever want to return to those bad old days.
Thanks, Dan. I think when you mention academic and learning, I think there is a perception academic is not for everybody, but learning is for everybody. And you're a great role model where I remember you sharing about the certifications that you've taken, and you're taking time off to learn, to step back from the rigor. And I think that's a great model, and I've seen it myself, switching from companies to companies, how that has helped scale us.
I'm going to take 30 seconds real quick. So,
You can take more than that.
all right, 45 seconds. The biggest ongoing inspirations have been all the women from India that I've met that come to the United States and have bachelor's and master's degrees in project management and are academically fluent in it more than I ever could be. And it's like, okay, there's the benchmark that I have to measure to. And the other was Ravi here. When I came to him initially about a year ago and said, I want to go on this path and I have this idea, what kind of benchmark do I measure at? Do I go, can I look at GitHub and say, all other things being equal, if I understand these things, would I be able to get to go where I am now if I make myself the equivalent of a qualified applicant for GitHub? And he said, yes. And so these are benchmarks that I, as a middle-aged white American male who corn-fed everything grown up, I'm looking at that and going, these are the benchmarks I must now meet. And that wasn't true 20 years ago, but it's true now, and the world's a better place for it.
I talked about sparks and inspiration right there. Thank you. Ravi, what's your most effective technique that you've used? You've also worked with diverse teams, a lot of technical teams across the globe. Usually there is, when in GitHub or even Microsoft, when you're there are these high visibility, multi-million-dollar product adaptations. So what's your most effective technique to make sure that the strategy is adopted, and how do you make that happen?
So you said global, multi-million dollar.
Yeah, diverse team.
Teams.
Because this is about scaling technology, and you're from the right place. You've been there, living it.
Yep.
So share us some of those effective techniques.
Sure. So let's break this question into 2-3 pieces. Like we are looking at high visibility project, diverse team, and multicultural or multi-region. The first thing as a project manager, and I did execute such projects, and I learned a lot. So the first thing what you need to understand is understand diverse teams. Understand that each team or those different individuals, they say, what's there for me? So as a project manager, you need to plant the seed that what's there for you is important, but you need to look at the overall vision of the project. You have to look at that what we as a team are going to achieve. Just leave the dollar part of that separate, or the high visibility part. The second aspect is, once they understand that 30,000 feet view, okay, this is what we wanted to achieve, understand culture aspects. Because if you go talk to a team who is sitting somewhere in India, in Bangalore or Hyderabad, and you'll say, we wanted to do this, their response will be, oh yes, we will do it. They'll not say, okay, because that's the culture which we grew, okay, yeah, this is a challenge, we are going to do that. Now, the same kind of team, if that team is sitting in LATAM, because I work with customers in Chile and France, which is not LATAM, which is Europe, but then other part of US, including Mexico, the culture aspect also plays a very vital role. So the same question will be seen differently by these different teams. So first, again, go back with a vision that what this project is going to do or what you're going to drive value out of it, and what's there for you and what's there for your end users. If you bring those things together, I believe your half of the battle is won there. And then you can start driving those modules and saying, okay, we are going to achieve this. And I'll give you one example that I was a project manager managing a project, and I was in India. And it was a French client for which we are working. So I used to interact with two teams. One was in UK, and most of the team members were in France. And we used to jump on a Teams call. And most of our talks were like that. I'm speaking in English. French client and the French team members, they are just typing in English because they don't know, how to speak English. But we were able to define that way and able to communicate and deliver results. So yeah, those are the points which I would always look at in order to deliver value at the end of the day.
Awesome, yeah. Effective technique to me, it's not using technology for technology, but also understanding the culture. And I really like the humility where he pointed out, France is not in LATAM, the knowledge of culture and understanding culture and respecting the culture. I love that. That's definitely an effective technique. Did you have anything to add, Dan, on that? So next topic is something very familiar. It's called artificial intelligence. I'll start with you, Jeff, because you had some justified skepticism about AI.
This one's going to get me in trouble.
Yeah. Make sure it's within 3 minutes.
I make no promises.
So what do you see the challenges leveraging AI in a Scrum or Agile space?
Thanks. So a man far smarter and wiser than me just last night said AI isn't ready for big time yet. I don't want to get into the ecological arguments against artificial intelligence as it's being done now. I don't want to get into the economic and or business models that make no financial sense right now, the market bubbles that they're talking about in CNN right now. At a professional development seminar conference, we do need to acknowledge the ways in which companies' application of AI right now is making it challenging, especially challenging for new college grads to find their first job, to build professional experience that they need to move in their career, to allow new people to enter our industry right now because of companies' dependence on AI and the way they're using it now. I think we need to acknowledge that on some level. With regard to Agile in particular, there are many things that AI will not be able to do that Agile teams depend on. Two key points are accountability and saying no. There was a line from the 1979 IBM manual that said that a machine can never experience a consequence. And as a result, a machine must never make a management decision because managers need to be held accountable for the decisions they make. And agility requires the decentralization of management decisions down to a team level. A team must be able to stand by the decisions they make at every level. A product manager must tell people, oh gosh, I would love to build that into our sprint, but let's get that into a sprint later, or I'd love to build that for you. It's not going to fit into the project, and has to stand by that decision, and AI can never do that. A Scrum Master, let's take a step back. A dev team needs to build a sprint plan that they really believe they can deliver in the course of 2 or 4 weeks, and has to stand by that and say, we thought we could do this in the course of a time we were successful or unsuccessful. And the team needs to stand by that accountability. And a Scrum Master has to stand by and say, my product manager says this fits into this is where the backlog is, I stand by this. My dev team says this is what we can deliver in the course of a sprint. I stand by them, I defend that, and I have accountability to support this team. And AI is a machine, it cannot be held accountable, it cannot make a business decision. Secondly, saying no. Everybody in that chain needs to be able to tell somebody no, and as they are presently written, these are bots that are designed to guess what word you expect to see next. These are biased towards saying yes. It's very hard to get ChatGPT to tell you no to something. And if everyone's saying yes or has a bias toward yes, an agile team cannot function if we keep saying, oh yeah, we can totally give you that in the course of this next sprint. Bonus point, learning. I am skeptical about the ways in which AI really learns. It trains, but it doesn't really learn. And deep learning, systemic learning, cultural learning are vital to agility, and that's not something I can fathom the thing we call generative AI doing anytime soon, before the bubble bursts.
Wow, that did not sound skeptical at all about it.
Come fight me.
Nice. It reminds me, like a deeper topic. I think earlier in the panel before, Kevin brought up AI doesn't have a soul. I remember reading in a book, I don't know if you guys have read this book by Yuval Noah Harari. He's written Sapiens. So they talk about how they're trying to figure out, humans have soul. Do animals have soul? Do they have the same kind of feeling? Before we understand AI. Dan, to you, how do you think the AI governance space differs from like traditional IT governance or the data governance?
So the big difference is that AI-specific governance focuses on qualitative rather than quantitative measures. And that is due to the nature of AI itself and the unpredictability of it. You can have quantitative measures saying an AI platform or an AI implementation should only take this much code or take this much bandwidth or have this many servers or have this on it. But what it does is it defies quantitative measures, so it has to go qualitative. So that's, again, where the human has to be in the loop. And I learned this term 2 days ago from Google, and I love it, the human in the loop. The human is the only being that can provide qualitative measures to govern an AI implementation. And so that's why NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the AI risk management framework, is written from a qualitative perspective, not a quantitative perspective. Same thing with ISO 42001. It's written from a qualitative perspective because of the inherent nature, the inherent unpredictable nature of AI implementations. And it sounds like an oxymoron because when you look at it, it's just, okay, it's a whole bunch of Python code written with a shell GUI that eventually boils down to a shell script, and it goes in through Unicode, UTC code, and it goes back, and it sends metadata back to databases scattered all over the place, performs a Monte Carlo calculation, sends back what it thinks is the right answer. That all sounds quantitative, but it's not. It's qualitative, and it will continue to be qualitative, and people have to kind of shift their minds to that, and they also have to hold in their mind to prevent falling into the fallacy that what they're talking to is a human being or an intelligent mind. It's not. That is, at best, a marketing gimmick, and at worst, it's a delusion. And so going forward, when you read through all the AI governance and whatnot, you're going to see qualitative measures, not quantitative.
Thanks, Jan. You brought up standards like NIST and governance bodies, and I'm sure, Ravi, you're not too stranger to that. Being in the security and vulnerability space, I'm sure CVEs coming from NIST and all this organizations. So where do you see, so within software development teams, you have the coding team, the testing team, who might also be coding. What kind of current limits of AI do you see, and what should the teams watch for? Like when they go talk to project manager, as project manager, go talk to the teams. What should those teams watch for? What is the limit of AI?
So you have heard me talking about AI enough that you'll say, oh, Ravi is going to talk more, and he's going to cross 3 million, 1,000 times AI. But I have a different instance to share here, that beat any technology. See, so take AI as a technology which we are using. And do we have other tools prior to AI? The answer is yes. We have been dealing with many tools from the days when we invented fire or discovered it, or even wheel, and then from there, now AI. So saying that it is hallucinating or it's hoax or fake or hype, it is unfair. Now, other aspect is that are we going to give that AI that much autonomy that start taking control? That is still a question which is in debate. You think about autonomous cars running right now, and they are making moves autonomously. And while we are skeptical about AI, I think that's a challenge. So I'm not countering that this technology is just a hype. Now, coming back to the question, you said that, how we are leveraging it. So think about a person next to you knows about every single tool your organization has, every single processes or steps, ways in order for you to achieve something. Don't you think that you're going to leverage that person? You'll say, hey, Ravi, can you answer me this? And Ravi knows everything because Ravi has a huge memory and he carries those memory bank along with him. Then you say, oh, Ravi, can you answer me this? And that Ravi says, yes, I do have answer this. Here's the answer. So that's the one take which we must take it positively towards AI. Now, it is up to us that how much autonomy we wanted to give that AI. And that's the reason I always say that we cannot sit aside and say, oh, AI is not going to happen. This bubble is going to burst, and I'm waiting for that bubble to burst. Guess what? It can grow bigger. And then the bigger challenge would come. Rather, I'll be a cynic or a critic, and I'm going to criticize it more. So again, coming back to the question that how my teams are leveraging, we do use AI almost on a daily basis. And we question it, we get help while we are writing code. AI is plugged in over there, it gives us code suggestions, and we go from there. So I would say experiment with it. That's my take.
All right, we will experiment and know the limits. We're at time for all of your questions. Yeah, before the timer throws the paddle at me. So I have not a lot of questions, so maybe we will come back to the fun round later. We'll see. So the first question, the most upvoted here, is what's the most exciting technology you cannot wait to get your hands on as a PM? Who wants to take that? There you go, Dan.
Scheduling. Fuck that shit. Yeah, that's right. I dropped the F-bomb because scheduling, it's the bane of our existence. And an AI can schedule like nothing else. Like scheduling was made for AI platforms. Like I will cheerfully kick that bucket over to an AI and say, take it from now until the end of time. Scheduling. Hell yeah.
Do you have a favorite tool that you use? Is there one? Scheduling?
Any of them can actually do it. Any of them can build a project network, plan it forward, backward, and the beauty is you ask the platform to do it, the engine to do it, and it does it. And then all you got to do is scan and go, okay, no, give me some slack here, adjust this here, and it does it. You don't have to book a conference room for 3 days and take a metric ton of Post-it notes and stack it all over the walls and do it. No, it does it for you. I'm like, oh, yes.
Nice. Who wants to go next?
I can add flavor to it. In fact, I think that all operational activities, what we do in day-to-day, anything, not just vacuuming our home and lawn mow and everything, must be handled by AI. But the biggest must part is they must be controlled by me. So if I have those agents, now think about this entire PDD, which we did it for 2 days, and we have seen Neha, Wendy, Ryan, Rachna, they're running around, Shraddha, and then just trying to manage things. Imagine that we have those agents doing for us, and we'll say, okay, is that room ready? Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, it's ready. Is that seating arrangement done? Yes, it's done. Okay. So I think that's the part I want AI to deal and handle and manage. And I wanted to manage the strategy of it. I wanted to manage that what's there for my team, what's there for all of us, what's there for people, what's there for humanity. And I think if we do that, I think that's the true advantage of AI.
But Roshana would get bored.
I have more questions, but anybody else, Greg or Jeff, do you guys have exciting technologies you want to share?
I have a piece of exciting technology. There's a karaoke machine at the Hula. As I shamelessly plug Thirsty Third Thursday next month, Hula Karaoke Edition. 7 o'clock is when karaoke starts. We'll probably start drinking about 6 p.m. You don't have to sing, but you do need to cheer on your fellow project managers who do sing. Thirsty Third Thursday, be there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, after Thirsty Third Thursday. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be drunk enough after the Thirsty Thursday for that. Next question. When you're working on a first-of-a-kind technology or approach, how do you get buy-in when there's little benchmarking available in the market? I'll start with the product manager here.
You mean buy in to go use it?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you have to find. I think when you promote like a product or a technology or capability, usually the people that you're getting buy-in from probably don't really know what you're talking about, and they probably don't care. And so you are challenged to say, this is how this is relevant. If you're running a business, at the end of the day, something either has to reduce cost or improve sales, right? But when you work in a certain organization and like a company, there's a third tier, which is like improve sales, reduce cost, or map to company values. And so when you're pitching something new or like a new capability, you have to say, here are the priorities we have a company for whatever reason, and this is how this maps to that. And so basically, you're taking things and putting it in ways that somebody understands. So for example, in my current role, I was pitching like an automation project that a lot of people don't really care about too much because it doesn't have an obvious value. It's very foundational for some other stuff that we're trying to do. But then when I walked into the presentation, I'm like, and this is how this maps to this priority that this VP has already said is a priority for him. And so it just gave it a little more weight to say, we're not just going and running off and doing this. This is how we're advancing our goals.
That's great. Yeah, I like the fact that you can tie in and bring in perspectives from other people in the company because it adds weight to it. Anybody else want to try it? You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're working on a first-of-a-kind technology, how do you get buy-in, especially when there's little benchmarking available in the market?
So what I have seen, it boils down to the storytelling. And look at those AI stories around us right now, how they started. It's all stories at the end of the day. And we may call it hype. We may call it that, okay, it's like a big bubble. And again, I'm repeating that line. But that's how they were able to sell it. When we work on a certain feature, we try to use a term called value-based delivery. So we no longer talk about dollar value. And we say, hey, this is a feature we wanted to implement, and this is the revenue we are going to get it. We stop talking that. And then entire Microsoft we focus on value-based delivery. And then value is not just for us, for our customers, and not just for customers and users. So that's how we put our story that this is a feature which is going to come. And for example, GitHub is open source, that's the premise. And it is going to impact end users, and hence customers, hence us. And that's the compelling piece, and that's how we go to our stakeholders and sponsors and say that this is the way we wanted to achieve. And there are high chances if our story has those elements, we will go through it and get the feature sponsor agreeing to it and letting us to work on those.
Nice, I like that. Storytelling has been the story since yesterday. It's been great to see that. I see a question which has both risk and agile ceremonies. So I get two people here who can answer that. So I'll start with you, Dan. How can we easily build in risk management concepts into agile ceremonies to help manage emerging tech? Pretty loaded question.
God. Jeff, I'm about to commit blasphemies here. Risk management is inherently anti-agile. You just cannot put risk management into an agile framework. You will always have to sacrifice something. So if you have to implement risk management framework into agile, understand that you're going to go to Wagile or sloppy waterfall. It is what it is. The cleanest you could do that I've seen done is Azure DevOps, where you've got a very tight. Let me frame this. The cleanest I've seen it done is in Azure DevOps, where you've got developers, coders, and a project team working together, but you have a very strict coding policy framework where they're going for their sprints, they're doing their sprints, but they're documenting their code, and they're following company line procedures that way to minimize risk when it comes to the quality of code and everything else. That's the cleanest I've ever seen it done. Outside of that, you have to move away from agile, because you've got to be able to document your risk, and you've got to be able to say, okay, this is the closest we can get to it, or this is, in order to manage this risk and get to manageable, acceptable standards, we're going to have to sacrifice some flexibility, we're going to have to sacrifice some creativity, and we're going to have to outsource some of the decision making in order to manage risk. And it's a balance, and it just depends on per project. But ultimately, the two are antithetical to each other. So you're always going to have some form of sloppy waterfall. You just have to pick and choose what makes sense to you.
Scrum gods forgive you.
It's your turn, Jeff.
Yeah, these are two frameworks that one key difference between agile and predictive project management is that predictive project management looks into the future thinking we think this is where we're going to go and plans things forward based on that. Agile is primarily backward focusing on what is our empirical evidence, what information have we gathered to this point, and how do we use that to then shape where we're going forward. And these two can work together, but I agree, if we're trying to plan our risks ahead of time, there's only so far the traditional agile frameworks care about that. At the end of the day, I've seen safe models where we look at what we want to build in the course of a quarter and kind of look at where different teams maybe need to do different pieces of the work ahead of time and soft plan our sprints for a quarter roughly to account for that, and then we press go and find out where we were wrong. The agile approach would just say, what we build you is what we build you. Agile projects always deliver on time and on budget, as was discussed in the spooky presentation. Because when we run out of time or money, this is the thing we just gave you. Here you go. But I agree, that is a circle we haven't squared yet here in Team Agile. But we'll discover it by next year's PDD session, so get tickets now.
I don't think we need a fun and light round. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to offer a different perspective if we have time.
Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I think you could deal with risk in two ways, but it's still a little bit hidden, so I'm not completely disagreeing with you guys. But if you're in an agile shop, you can deal with risk on a micro level because that's part of t-shirt sizing. So everyone thinks that t-shirt sizing is about how long I think this is going to take. But t-shirt sizing, if done correctly, you can correct me here, is that it's supposed to account for both effort and uncertainty. And so when you do your development poker and you're like, I think this is going to take me 2 days, or I think this is going to take me 5 days, in your mind might go, I think it's going to take me a 2 day, but I have no freaking clue. So I'm going to allow myself 3 or 4 days. So you're managing risk at a micro level by just giving yourself, you're going to do less in a given sprint because you're dealing with uncertainty. But at a macro level, really what it comes down to is, since if you adhere to I think the philosophy of Agile, I could stop at any point in time and I'm still delivering value to the customer. And so the way you deal with risk, and this is the way I would present it, is that the major difference between waterfall and Agile, I think in a very real world consequence, is that if a waterfall project gets 90% done and it gets scrapped, I haven't delivered any value because of the nature of waterfall. If I go Agile and I get 90% done with scope and I have to stop, I still delivered 90% of the value. Right. That is the whole nature of Agile. So you deal with it, just not in a traditional project management sense. That's how I envision it.
Yeah.
Any comment?
The story pointing planning poker, if you don't know what that is, ask me during break. We build that risk component into every sprint plan all the way. And if we deliver the things that we thought we would deliver and have extra time, cool, we can pull stuff off the backlog. It's no big deal. If we don't deliver things by the end of the sprint, cool, we now know better to plan a better sprint next sprint. I guess I was focusing on like that macro level of risks where, oh gosh, we have a supplier who needs to give us some API or something by this one date 3 months from now. Agile has no idea how to answer that question directly, except we'll discuss that next year at next year's PDD event next October.
Can I add?
We have 2 more minutes. You can finish up.
I just wanted to add Microsoft's flavor, and don't quote me outside that, okay? This is Microsoft way, what Ravi told us. I totally agree with what all you have said, all 3 of you. But in Microsoft, what we do is we have layered Agile, and we say N+1 and N+2 planning as well, which means that while the train is running, you're building tracks, and you're ensuring that train should move on and on till it could be 80% or 90% or may hit this destination. We do N+1 and N+2 planning, which kind of gives us some sort of headroom to think about that what potential risks we're going to encounter. And that's the way we kind of manage it. But yeah, it's not like in waterfall or in iterative projects where you have a comprehensive risk analysis. But yeah, that's another take towards Agile, which we do.
With that, thank you all for your insightful thoughts. And thank you, the audience, for the attention and the questions. I'm sure emerging technologies are changing the way we deliver value. And this kind of dialogue, we should continue as we evolve. Thank you so much. One more round of applause for the panelists here.
Could we also get one more round of applause for Phoi, our MC?
That's right, our MC. Yeah, back to you, MC. Thank you so much.
And for Sreeraj as well.
Yes, I was told to say that. Thank you for Sreeraj, and thank you for our very knowledgeable speakers about emerging technologies. I learned a ton about AI, and I'm very glad to have all your perspectives. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I think it's cocktail hour now, so we're looking forward to that. But thank you very much for sharing all your perspectives.